I want to start off by thanking you for taking the time. I know you're busy to come and spend an hour with us and talk about what I love so much is music. And I was telling everybody in the intro just now that you're a guy that plays guitar. You've written your own songs. You recorded your own songs. You're doing it, and that's what people I want to talk to, because I think that is such a skill. So I want to give you the floor, because like I said, we only have an hour. So I want you to break down, like, you let people know a little bit about yourself, when you started playing guitar, because I wanted to ask you that, and what goes into writing a song. We can take this wherever you want.
Okay, well, I started playing guitar, Rick, going back to when I was a kid. My father was taking some adult music courses at the local school, and he bought a cheap acoustic at the time, and it didn't last very long. Dad went a few times, and then what happened was my brother and I picked up the guitar. And what I did growing up to teach myself guitar, because I'm self-taught, I did take music theory when I got to college. It was a semester of music theory. What I did at the time when I was a kid was to go buy sheet music of songs that I knew. And those were Beatles songs at the time. And the reason why I did that was because I knew how the songs went, and I would know whether I was playing them correctly, because I had to teach myself the chord configurations and all of that. As a kid growing up, my brother was drumming and I was trying to play guitar. He was a much better drummer than I was a guitarist at the time. We're talking about 11, 12, 13 years old. And I was making a lot of noise. I remember having this cheap plastic wah pedal, and I must have sat in the garage for about an hour just going back and forth with the wah pedal. Wah, wah,
I love wah pedals. Jeez, I love them.
And to this day, I don't even know how my mother or father just didn't take it and smash it and put it in the garbage. Because when I think back, boy, oh boy, I was making a lot of noise. So then what happened, I guess around, I would say 15 years old is when I really started to bring it together as far as playing guitar, playing it, and not just goofing around with it, and learning a lot more about the structures, the scales and all of that stuff. To learn to play lead guitar, what I did was I bought a Jimi Hendrix book, because I was very influenced by Jimi Hendrix. I loved Hendrix growing up as a kid, and I was always enamored with his lead guitar playing. So I bought this book. It was How to Play Like Jimi Hendrix. I still have the book, and I looked at all of the scales. They had illustrations of where the notes were on the guitar neck. And so I sat down and very diligently put my fingers, where the book was saying to put your fingers on this fret, on this string, pull up here, and so on. And it really started to come together for me. By the time I got to the late 1970s, I was born in 59, so I'm 66. I just turned 66.
You don't look it.
Well, thank you.
Oh my God.
Thank you. I always say it's my wife's cooking. She keeps it very organic, very clean. So back in the late 1970s, I formed a little band. Actually, I should say we formed a little band. It was me on guitar, also on bass occasionally. My brother was the drummer, and my friend Jeff was the piano and keyboard player. So we sat down and we started writing our own stuff. Back then, I'm talking around 1977, 1978 or so, we thought it was the greatest thing since the light bulb, not realizing that we were still very much novices at that time, But I will say this, we were very creative. When I go back and I listen to those old songs, I think to myself, well, you know what? Okay, so the musicianship may not have been there spot on, although it wasn't bad. But the creativity, the process of thinking through a song and being creative was very good. And in fact, I'm working on a project now. It's called the Yesteryear Project with my brother. And these are songs that I'm going back and re-recording that were recorded back in the early 1980s, from around 1982 through, let's say, by the time everything is all said and done, through 1990. But right now, the songs that I'm working on, 1982, 83, 84, at that point, we were actually pretty good. We were very good as a band. We did a lot of rehearsing. We were playing all the time. So within like 3 or 4 years of just playing, we got to be pretty good. And we were going in and out of studios when we could, because money, it was hard to come by at that point. You're a kid, and studios were charging anywhere between, 40, 50 to $70 an hour, depending upon how many tracks.
Yeah, that is a lot.
It's a lot of money when you're a kid,
Yeah.
especially going back, the very late 1970s, going into the 1980s. And so we recorded these songs. Some of these songs were recorded in a studio because there was a recording studio on Long Island, because that's where I'm from, Long Island. And they were also a school that taught people how to become recording engineers.
Wow, that's so cool.
So they needed bands to come in so that the kids can learn how to record. So we got free studio time as the people, I say the kids, well, a lot of them were kids. They were about our age, maybe a little older at the time, were learning how to record. So they would record us. And at the end of the hour or the hour and a half, whatever it was, we would get a tape of what they recorded, which was us playing our song. The thing with those songs, though, was that a lot of times we came in and it was wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. We had to get in and get out. We just flew through the songs. And many times they were songs that we were working through. So we figured, well, let's just bring this into the studio. Let's see where we can go with it and how it sounds. And at a later point, we would have the opportunity to fine tune the song and record it. But these were rough demos.
But you guys played as a full band in the studio, right?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot now, musicians half the time aren't even in the same country. They're kind of doing it like they can do it from all over the world. They're not all in the studio. I think there's something about what you're saying about all of the band being in the studio playing it. I don't know if they do that anymore, to be honest.
Well, this day in the digital age, yeah, you're right. A lot of times they're not there.
Yeah, something in my opinion. So I love that you guys are all in there together, working it out. Amazing.
Yeah, so we actually played live, if you will. We did some overdubs, like if I had to do a guitar lead, or at the time our other guitarist Mark had to do a guitar lead, we may do an overdub or whatever. But the basic rhythm tracks, I'll phrase it this way: the basic rhythm tracks were all recorded live in the studio. So we had the bass, we had me on guitar, the drums going, and if we had a piano or a keyboard in the song, that was usually recorded as part of the basic rhythm track. So what happened was, between going to that school and being recorded and actually paying money to go to a studio to record songs that we did complete and we were ready to put out as a demo going off to record companies and publishers, my brother and I have this stash of songs going back from 40 years ago. So going back, I guess around 9 months or so, 9 months, maybe 12 months, I said to my brother, I said, hey, we have those old songs. Some of them are done because they were demos that we released. Others were not done, but they were good songs. We just didn't have the opportunity to finish them. I said, I think what we should do now, because we both have home studios, is to take the time to put the songs back together again, and not to record them exactly the way we did, Rick, back 40 years ago, but to reimagine the songs as if they were newly written today.
Very cool.
What would they sound like? Because now I'm 40 years older. My brother's only about 13 to 14 months younger than I am. So we're both in our mid-60s. That's the project we're engaged in right now. And I have to tell you, it's a lot of fun. It's really a lot of fun to go back to those old songs. In fact, it's interesting because when you go back 40 years, I was telling my wife this and my brother just the other day, it's amazing how much you remember from 40 years ago when you were in the studio, what you did.
Yeah.
And other times I would listen to it and I would be saying to myself, well, what am I doing there? Because sometimes what you were doing got lost in the mix. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to listen to it, just focus on that in the mix to refigure out what it is that I was doing. And so far, success. Amazingly, my brother was doing a lot of the bass playing back then, and he's a very good bass player. And I said to him, do you remember your bass parts? He goes, yeah, I do.
That's incredible.
So I said, you remember the bass parts from 40 years ago?
Exactly.
And he did. So I said, okay, I'll tell you what, you just show me what you did, I could have figured it out, but I'm sitting there with him. I said, "Show me what you did," and he showed me. I'm like, "Okay." So when I go home, I'll crack my bass out and I'll re-record that bass track for the song. My brother actually by trade is a drummer, but he was a very good keyboard and piano player and a very good bass player as well.
Wow, that's incredible. I
But his
can't believe
first,
there's you people that can play multiple instruments. I'm fascinated by. I'm struggling with drums. So I can't
drum,
imagine like,
yeah,
and you hear that a lot, and I have mad respect for like Prince, and you hear these artists that they can pick up any instrument, and it's just a gift that they can do it. I work for my drum beats, but the fact that I like people like yourself and your brother that can play keyboard, bass, drums, guitar, I'm really like that's something really rare, special, I think, and incredible.
it was just one of those things, Rick, where I never took any form of musical training. I'm pretty much self-taught, so I had to teach myself the guitar. And once you know the guitar, you can play bass.
I've heard
Um,
that. I've heard that.
yeah, I mean, but the bass in itself, there are extraordinary bass players. I'm not going to
Hmm.
say I'm an extraordinary bass player. I mean, there are techniques and the such that the great ones have mastered. But if you play guitar, you should be able to play bass because it's the same E, A, D, G. The first four strings on the
Hmm.
bass are the first four strings from low E down
Hmm.
on the guitar. And then I had to teach myself how to play piano. And so I bought a couple of books. I started very simple with basic chords, and I had to learn keys and the such. And like I said, I did take a semester of music theory when I was my first year of college, going back to what was that, 1978 or so.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that's how I got into it. And going into the 1980s, when we were doing all of this recording, we were writing songs. I was the primary songwriter. We put together a demo of 6 songs. To this day, I still believe the songs were 6 pretty good songs.
Yeah.
And they're some of the songs that I'm re-recording as we speak. And we sent them out to record companies and also to music publishers because I was looking to either get signed as a band or to get the music published, one or the other.
Yeah. That's where
And
money is.
I was working out in Manhattan at the time. And back in those days, back in the 1980s, a lot of the record companies had locations in New York City. And I found out the hard way that no matter how good you think your songs are, that record companies do not take, well, the big labels don't take unsolicited material. So when you mail your tapes out, or when I mailed our tapes out, and this happened to a lot of people, and I know this because some of the record companies had a stamp that they put on the envelope. They didn't create that stamp just for Mike, that said we don't accept unsolicited material. So what would happen is if you sent your recording out to Capitol Records or to RCA or to MCA or any of the big labels, they would usually send the envelope back unopened, stamped with "We do not accept unsolicited material." So it was at this point that, I got an education because how old was I? Maybe 23 years old, 24 years old at the time. I was a kid.
You just send it in, they'll listen to it, they're going to love it.
They're going to love it.
Yeah.
And and I also was walking the beat in New York, and I wound up in this one publisher's office in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And I think he was involved in the publishing with Meatloaf at the time. I think so, because the comment he made to me was, I contacted him and he said, "Yeah, come on in. Let me take a listen at what you've got." So I played the tape for him, and he was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." He says, "And I really like your lyrics." He says, "Have you thought about being a lyricist?" And I said, "Well, I'd rather be a musician and a lyricist and put songs together,
Right. Yeah.
and not just be a Bernie Taupin." And he said, "Look," he said, what you need to do is to write more like Meatloaf, like the songs that you're hearing coming from Meatloaf, because at the time Meatloaf was hot."
Yes, I love Meatloaf still. I love
Yeah.
his music.
So
His work. Wow. Yeah.
I made the mistake because I was so cocky at the time. And that's the other thing. You have to be humble. Don't be so cocky.
Humble
But
musician. Did they exist?
I know, right? You know what? It happens when you get older.
Yeah.
Trust me. It happens when you get older. When you're a kid, no, there is no being humble. And I said to the guy, I said, "Meatloaf, he's a flash in the pan."
Oh my-
Well,
Wow.
It's very soon after that I was shown the door. I'll never forget that. And
Wow, that's
it
cool.
was it was another time. It was a friend of mine. Actually, it was a guy I used to work for. His name was Jimmy, and he knew a guy by the name of Bobby Baranello at RCA Records, and Bobby was a vice president of RCA, or one of the vice presidents. And so Jimmy says to me, Mike, let's go meet Bobby. He's a good friend of mine. Let's talk to him about your music, because Jim liked my music. He had a tape and all that stuff, and I played it for him. So I sat down for lunch with Bobby Baranello, and Bobby says, Mike, what I want to do, he says, we have to kind of grease the skids here for you. And there are these cable TV stations in New York City, in Manhattan, and they have these shows where up and coming songwriters, bands, musicians are showcased.
Hmm.
So I said, oh, this is fantastic. So Bobby said to me, he says, I'll get you on one of these shows. Let me work on it, because I'll get back to you. So I'm thinking this is very good. So I get contacted and they want to have me on the show. And Rick, I kid you not, 2 weeks before the show, I was to go on the show no longer existed.
Oh, you hear that? Oh, I've heard this before. I've heard this with bands that almost get a record deal, like it's in the can, and
Yeah.
then something falls through at like the 23rd and three-quarter hour, and it
Yeah.
all disappears. So I could have. Oh my God, that would be heartbreaking.
It's one of those things. You just have
Wow.
to roll with the punches, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was not really big into playing cover music. Of course, we did as a band. We would play some cover tunes. We never really played out because we were very focused on original songwriting and recording the original songs. We were also naive from that perspective.
I have
So
a very similar friend right now that wants no part. He's my guitarist. He writes all his own original stuff. He wants no part of cover. Very rare will he play a cover. Like he's like, I can write my own stuff, and I admire that. But I think you need a balance at first.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's what happened to us. And we played covers, you know, but we did it actually as a warm up or just to get into the swing of
Right?
things.
Yeah.
But the original music, composing original music, was very, very important to me. And I learned how to write music by listening to the bands I was influenced by. I was heavily, heavily influenced, as you know, by the Beatles. I was heavily influenced by Jimi Hendrix, by Tommy James and the Shondells. I love Tommy James's music. He's a great songwriter. I was very influenced by Led Zeppelin,
Mm,
you know, a lot of the classic rock bands.
yeah.
So I was self-taught from that perspective too, how to write music, verses, bridges, chorus, how to arrange it, and so on. And so then what happened was we got into the mid 1980s, and then everybody had to go get a job because what we were doing wasn't paying the bills.
Yeah, hear that a lot too.
Yep.
Yep.
And when that happens, then the band starts to come apart because your full-time job starts to occupy your time. You get married, you have kids, you have other responsibilities. And so that happened to me as well. But I still kept on playing. And what happened was after our initial band disbanded, my brother built a 4-track recording studio in his home in Maryland. And so then what happened was I was writing the music, and then I would make these lightning trips at the time I was up, in New Jersey. I would go down to Maryland. And then later on, when I was in North Carolina, which is where I'm at now, I would go up to Maryland. My brother now lives in North Carolina with the rest of the family. But at the time, he was in Maryland and I was in Jersey and then North Carolina. I'd make the trip up there. I would write the songs while I was home, and over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and I would leave on a Sunday, we would record an entire song from beginning to end. Yeah, so we were doing that for a while too, and that was very good because unlike the late 70s and the 1980s, where the songwriting was more geared toward what was selling, what was popular. So you're trying to fit your songwriting into a formula because you're trying to, you're trying to match what's out there. Because if you show up with something that's not what's hot, chances are they're not going to talk to you.
That's just such a great point, Mike. And I watched tons of music documentaries, and what you brought up is actually brought up so often that there was like, especially in the '80s, which is kind of like where I focus a lot. I see a lot of documentaries from the '80s, and bands had to make, especially when the grunge scene started to come in, bands had to start making a decision. Like record labels would even start forcing them, like, you got to start playing this type of music.
Right.
And then some bands sold out, and then some bands, like I think a big one was Metallica and a few other, like Megadeth, those really heavier bands, they didn't sell out. And now they're still around. So it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think every musician maybe at some point has that decision to make. Do you stand by what you're passionate and true to yourself, or is it about the money and popularity? I don't know, never had that yet. I'd put that before me.
Well, the industry, the labels, and the publishers, producers will put a lot of pressure on a band to conform. They'll say, look, we've got to move the music in this direction because this is what's popular right now. So
that's where it starts.
when I was writing music, I tried not to sound like everybody else, but I had to shape the music in a way that when they heard it, they could say, okay, well, this is kind of like what's going on right now in the music scene. Now, but what happened was, like I said, once my brother built his 4-track studio and we got to the point where he had a career and I had a career, we didn't care anymore about record contracts or publishing contracts. We threw in the towel and said, you know what, we're just going to write music because we love to write and record music. That's what we're going to do. And that was a breath of fresh air, Rick, because during that period in the 1990s, we were very, very creative and very experimental. And there was a lot of, in my opinion, of course, they're my songs, but I thought that a lot of the songs were very, very interesting and very well done because we took a lot of time to make sure that the songs were well recorded. And my brother, and still is to this day, he was always extremely good with electronics. I remember when I got there one time, he had built this patch board with, I don't know how many switches were on it. And I looked at it and I said, where'd you get this? He goes, I built it. I said, you built that? So he said, yeah, and it does this and it does that. And he's explaining to me what it does. I said, Paul, it's okay. I don't need to know. I said, as long as you know what switch to throw at what time, we're good to go, you know. Yeah, so then there was a dry spell for a period of time with me, going from, I was still playing guitar and I was still writing songs and, you know, strumming along, but the recording had subsided after, I would say, let's say the year 2000. And again, still playing, but I still had my career. I worked for a large corporation out of New York City, so a lot of my time was spent, you know, doing my career. And then when I got to around 2009 or so, 2008, 2009, I started thinking, you know what, I really need to get back into the music. I get back into it in a way that I can start producing music again, original compositions. And that's when I made a decision to write from scratch my first album, Leaving Dystopia, which was released in February of 2013. And I started Leaving Dystopia, if memory serves me correctly, the latter part of 2011, all throughout 2012. That wasn't consistently through 2012 because I was working. So when I had time, I would sit down, I would write songs, I would begin the recording process, I would finish the recording process, move to the next song. And that's when I released my first album, Leaving Dystopia. Then 5 years after that, in 2018, I released my second album, Hollow Moon, which Hollow Moon has 8 songs on it. And those songs were songs that I wrote between the time that Leaving Dystopia was released and then, you know, by the time that Hollow Moon was released, which was in February of 2018. So both records were released in February. So I got 8 songs together in between my job and family stuff and all that. And then in May of 2023, I hope I got that right, I think it is, I released my third album, No More Gods. And
Great
No
name,
More,
by the way.
yeah, No More. It's one of those names where I had the title in my head for a long time, And I was thinking to myself, that would make a great title to a song and to an album. And so the title of the album is No More Gods, and the chorus in the song is No More Gods, No More Heroes. Basically, be true to yourself. That's what the song is about. So that's 10 songs that I wrote for No More Gods. And after I released my third album, that's when I started thinking about the old songs that I was just telling you about, and thought, I need to resurrect those songs. Part of it, Rick, is because it's a legacy thing. And I knew the songs were good. And I thought to myself, why should they just be forgotten back in history 40 years ago? Why don't I just brush them off, dust them off? Let's give them another go. And it's been a lot of fun. And my plan is to get 12 to 15 of those songs completed by the end of this year, and then release it as an album through my publisher, TuneCore. And I already have 6 songs done. Jeez. And I'm working on the 7th as we speak. So I'm moving along with it.
That is definitely moving along with it. I'm excited to hear it. Please keep me posted. Now, I want to ask you, I'm fascinated by this. And what's your process for writing a song? I hear some artists say they hear the music first in their head. They work out the music and then they add lyrics. And then I've heard the opposite side. They start with lyrics. I tried to write a song and it was not good. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just write words down, and I just like to know your process, because you've done it so many times. You've written so many songs. I'm fascinated by your process. How do you go about it?
It comes both ways. Sometimes what'll happen is I'll be driving and a phrase will come to mind. And I think to myself, that is a good lyric, or that's a good title to a song, or a good title to an album, like with No More Gods. And what I'll do is I will text that phrase or that lyric to myself so that I don't forget it. Because if you don't write it down or text it to yourself, then chances are that you may not remember it. I've done that before too, where I can kick myself. I'm thinking, I know I had a great lyric and I just can't remember what it was.
I'm just giggling because I do that with drum beats. I'll think of something when I'm sitting on the couch. And I'm like, oh, I'll remember that in an hour. I never do.
Right.
I never do.
Yeah, that's what happens. And other times, more often with me, is the music will come. So I will sit down mostly with the guitar, and a lot of times it's with the acoustic guitar. But I have written songs on the electric as well. What I'll do with the electric is I have a Fender G-Deck amplifier that has a built-in drum machine.
Oh, that's cool.
And so what I'll do is I'll put it on a rock beat, and I'll set it to 100 beats per minute or 120 or whatever.
Nice beat, yeah.
And I will just play along to it. And when I do that, what happens is I start to pick up on riffs, chord progressions, and things that, if it sounds good, I think to myself, okay, that's the beginning of something. I think I can work with that. Another way that I do it is I just sit down at the piano and I just relax and just kind of play some chords and see where it goes from there. And if I don't have the lyrics, I will just kind of create lyrics. Some of them might sound like nonsense at the time, but you're just trying to fill in the blanks, just trying to get the flow going, I'm
just smiling so big because that's what my guitarist does. He'll start playing stuff and he's just talking gibberish. Like he's just like, and he's humming and tapping his foot and just saying, and he's just like, I don't know the words, but he knows, he definitely has an idea in his mind where he wants it to go. And he's like, the words will come later. I just need to, so he'll hum and just say whatever word, like you just described.
Yeah. And the important thing is to record it. So so many people don't do that, right? And like I said, it's like with the lyrics, if you don't document it, if you don't get it captured, then the chances are that you may not remember that riff, or you may remember it, but maybe not exactly how you played it. That's what I do. I record. It's a very simple recording process. I don't have an elaborate, I have a 24-track recorder, but what I'm saying is when I do these demos, I just record it through my microphone on my desktop. So I capture it.
Yep.
And I put it in a folder that says, the name of the folder is New Song Ideas.
Yeah.
And I will go back and take a listen when I'm ready to put something together and say, okay, now what do I have in the little bag of tricks here that I've already started? Is there something here that I can continue with and build a song? And so, I mean, maybe a best way to do this is what I did was I sent you some files. I don't know if we can play them.
Yeah, if you can share it, if you don't mind sharing it, we can play it.
Okay, let me see if I can.
I'm just worried if I do it from my end. See, I've been trying, Mike, to play some songs on my end, and we tried it on a friend's show, Bill, who's listening, and it got staticky for some reason. I don't know if it's Skype or whatever. So maybe if you have the audio file right there.
Okay, so let me do this. This is the best way to, I think, to illustrate to the audience how this process works.
Okay.
And let me just get there. Hold on one second.
You just have to share screen and share audio, and we should be good.
Okay.
Hopefully this works, because I would love to hear. And I'll make sure everyone who's listening while Mike does this, I will make sure that I put links so you can check out his music. I already put a link for his YouTube channels. So I will make sure, please go check out his channel, show him some love, subscribe. Great content, guys. And please check out his music.
Okay, so I'm sharing now, Rick. What do I have to do with the audio? It just says I'm sharing. Well,
I think you just got to play it, and I think we should hear it. If you shared audio,
okay,
we should be good.
All right, so there's a song on my third album that's titled Don't Let Go. And the way the song was created, my wife wrote down some lyrics. And she said to me that she had these lyrics. And I said, well, just sing them into your phone, hon, so that you don't forget them. Then I'll take a listen and I'll put the music to it. So what I'm going to play is a 30-second bit, which is the actual recording that my wife sent over to me.
Okay.
Waves of desperation come crashing in again, feeling no sensation. I need you till the end. Don't you know? I need my baby feeling low. Don't you know? I need my baby, don't let go.
Okay, so that's the 30-second bit. That's what she sang. So she wrote those lyrics down. So if you just scroll down a little bit.
Yep.
Okay, so you're going to get a link that says Don't Let Go Unplugged Demo. So this is what I did. Now, this is me recording into my computer, 2 tracks into Audacity, playing the acoustic and singing the song. This is only 1.5 minutes, so this won't take too long. So this is the original demo.
Okay. Hopefully, I'm not sure if I'm going to have to. I hope this plays. This is going to be amazing.
Wake up, desperation, come crashing in again. Feeling no sensation, I need you till the end. Don't you know? I need my baby. Don't you know? I need you, baby. Don't let go. That's the situation. The truth is plain to see. This abomination is only you for me. Don't you know? I need my baby. Don't you know, I need you, baby. Don't let go.
That is so good.
Okay, so
that's so good, dude.
Well, thank you. So again, this is a good illustration because my wife just sent me over the raw lyrics with her melody line, and then I sat down and said, okay, let's take what she has for lyrics and her melody. I tried to keep her melody, and that was the demo we just listened to. Now, if we play the next
one right
SoundCloud, yes, it just says Don't Let Go. We don't have to play the whole song. But this is the completed song. This is the song that was released.
Okay.
Waves of desperation
the situation? The truth is plain to see. This abomination, there's only you for me. Don't you know? I need my baby. Don't you know? I need my baby. Don't let go.
Yeah, I thought that was a good way to show how it comes along. So songwriting, Rick, as I've explained in the other shows that we had, it's a process. And, some songs, they may come quickly, and other songs will take time, sometimes a lot of time.
Yeah, you hear some artists say that they worked on songs for 10 years. I've heard bands say that. They play with it, they tinker around, they put it away, they come back to it. So I'd love that. That's really interesting. You can't give up on a song, I guess, or maybe some songs they'll never be anything. But
what'll happen sometimes is, like with the song "Breathe," which is on my No More Gods album, that consists of two different riffs that I had over time. So I had riff A, and I was, goofing around with it here and there, and thinking to myself, "This is a pretty good riff. I want to try to see if I can do something with it." And it just sat for a long time, and I would revisit it once in a while and think the same thing. I've got to do something with it. And then I had another riff, and I thought, well, you know what? Why don't I combine these two riffs and put them together? And I think that could make a song. And that's exactly what happened. There is no spontaneous combustion most of the time with songwriting, because we have to remember that songwriting is not just about writing the music. It's also putting the lyrics together.
Right.
And then once you get the music and the lyrics together, then there's a whole piece of it where you have to arrange the song. So you're going to have your verse, you're going to have your bridge, you're going to have your chorus. How many bars is this? How many bars is that? Are there too many bars here, or do I need to insert one or two? And in other words, you got to work it through. And then after you do that, then you have to sit back and think to yourself, okay, well, now what types of overdubs are required in a song? I mean, do I need strings? Do I need a brass section? I mean, what fits the song? What's going to make the song better? That's how you have to think in terms of when you write songs. It's not a matter of just putting stuff in there and layering it. Some of the best songs are those that are simple.
I agree. Yep.
Other times you can layer the song and you can add orchestration and various different types of arrangements, and it works just beautifully. So it really depends upon what your take is when you're hearing the song, not just for the songwriter, but the band members, or if you're with a label, it's going to be the producer who's going to take a listen and decide on, what the next steps are. Songs are edited as well. So you can record a song, and after you record it, you might listen to it and say, I have probably a measure or two too much there, and so I'm going to need to edit out those measures to make the song flow. The important thing with music is it has to flow.
So important.
It has to flow, and it has to keep going. It has to keep the interest of the listener. And I found that the sweet spot is about 3 to 3.5 minutes for a typical song. Some of them might be less. I have songs that are 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes 45. I have songs also that are more than 4 minutes long, 4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
It
I was
really
gonna say
depends.
you have like what you just said, and you have epic songs like Meatloaf that are like 9 minutes, 8 minutes, and they work. It's just, but that's not the norm.
No, that's not the norm. It's like the
Yeah.
Beatles. Hey Jude, I think is like
I love that song.
6 or 7 minutes, but
Yeah.
it works. But can you make every song work at 6 or 7 minutes? Absolutely not. You'll bore people out of their skulls. So that's basically it, Rick. I know we have till 8 o'clock here, and I just wanted
Yeah,
to
I
give
want
a
to get
little
you back
background.
on. I definitely want to get you back on in the future, Mike, on this, especially on this show, because I mean, I got so many more questions. So I hope we can set something up and get you back on once in a while to really break this down, because I think this is so important for people to hear and to understand how, like that little example of where your song started, where your wife just gave you the lyrics. You hear the raw vocals, and then you add a little bit of guitar, and then you see the final product. I just always say to people, it takes how do I word it? It makes people realize that how it's done, and you can do it. It takes some of the confusion out of it. Like, how do they do it? And you show that perfectly. That's how you do it.
Yeah, and most importantly, for the audience to understand, of course, the musicians and songwriters listening understand, but there are going to be people who are not musicians and songwriters. It is a process, and most of the time when you're writing a song and putting it together, it takes time. I know I've had songs where I've written them very quickly, but the vast majority of them are not, like I said, it's not spontaneous combustion. It doesn't just come and fall on your lap. You've got to work them if you want the song to come out the way you want it to come out.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. And I love that we're going to be ending with putting the work in. I've been really telling people that so much lately in so many different areas. Like, you have to put the work in, and that's when it was required. I'm sorry. If you want to do that, you got to put the work in. I'm going to give you the next couple minutes. I'm just going to keep an eye on, I'm so used to 2 hours. We got about a minute, Mike. So I just want to give you the floor. Let everyone know where they can find where you want them to find your work. And then please make sure you give me the links after this. I'll put them in the chat if I haven't got any of the ones. There's more that you want me to post. So just let people know where they can find your music, everything.
Okay, so for my music, Rick, I just have a hub website. It's laboroflovemusic.com. So laboroflovemusic.com. If you go there's a whole bit on my background, basically what I took everybody through on this show, and then all of the music is there. And you can take a listen.
All right, perfect. I'm just typing that up right now. So laboroflovemusic.com.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, there we go. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate you taking the time. I hope you do come back in the future. I want to continue this. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please check out Mike's music. Check out his YouTube channels, and I will definitely see you guys next Friday. Once again, Mike, thank you so much. What a great show.
All right, Rick, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Revolution